Hi, this is John Todd Redding, artist here, and recently I was requested by someone to do a lesson on postcards because they get a postcard from me every time I travel, and I had to travel this time around for 2 months. I went from San Diego to Oregon, and well, that didn't work out. They sent you home. We're all at home now, and so since we're at home, maybe you can make a postcard to send to anybody. This is a lesson for all ages, for all time, because postcards will live on forever, and these you can buy ready-made postcards that have the area for you to put where it's going and to place your stamp here and to write your message here. And you can get those, you can probably get these online right now. There's one brand, Arches might make some, and it's just a 15 pack. And these are watercolors that you can do and send a message to somebody, and it's U.S. Postal 4x6 postcard. Alright, so let's show you our materials. We have our reference that we're working from and our clean white postcard. I have a Sharpie for working on it later. That's a 1-inch Russian sable paintbrush, and then a variety of other watercolor paintbrushes here. We have some sponges and various pots of water to clean your brushes out and to have clean water to work from all the time. And then if you want to go to Piccadilly Square, a little art shop off of there in London, you can get one of these beautiful Winsor Newton 24 case watercolor kits, but most student kits come with about 9 colors in them. But this is great. This I bought in 1991 in the UK and traveled the world with it. So those are your materials, and let's get started. Okay, so here we go. So we've got the Rogue River Valley. That's heading down the road to Grants Pass, Oregon. And we're going to do this in several steps. First, we're going to do some wet on wet of the sky and the foreground. And then while that's drying, you can take a little break and go get your address together, buy some stamps. Then we're going to do the middle ground, the mountains. And then we'll go back in and do some details on the foreground. And I do pen and ink at the end. So there's several steps. First one we're going to start with is by taking this 1-inch brush and dipping it in pure water and just drawing the sky, I call it. So I start on the top with one brush, 2 strokes to get it out, and then I come down a bit, and I did this from a photograph, but I just blind draw with water those mountains, just the tops of the mountains. Then I'm going to do water for the foreground, just like that, come across, and I'm going to let that postcard get really wet. I took it off the block and worked separate. I'm a little bit, as you can see, different than most. You could be cleaner and tighter and keep things more in order, but you're going to see mine move around a lot. Then I'm going to take a smaller brush now, and I'm going to do the sky. So for the sky, I'm just going to use a dark blue I have here, and it's really quite easy. So first you can follow that wet line that you created for your mountains. Once, then get some more color and do a wavy line across the center there once, and now without grabbing any more color, just come across the top a little bit wavy, however you want. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zip some lines across there, and that's that. I may decide to make a little more cloud top tuck in like that. Alright, now I'm going to do the land. So that's just greens and browns. So you can choose which one to do first. I've got this kind of, I don't know, let's call it sandalwood brown, because there's just a few spots where I can see some brown. It's just early spring up there. It is getting green, but there are some brown spots throughout. And you can see I just barely do that. I grab some water and I can wash it out if I think it's too thick. You can see my paper is curling. That's okay. Now I'm going to switch to green. And I've got this super light green that's just actually almost a yellow green. As you see, I'm just bringing in different spots where I think maybe those greens should be. I worked from a photo originally on this, but I'm just working from that postcard next to me right now. So now I'm going to go in with my next darker green and create sides of trees. So you see I'm just laying that brush down on top of wet. This is wet on wet. And I'm just kind of what I call erasing the white. So far you've done two greens and a kind of a brown. You can go ahead and do a third green. Mine's kind of gone from yellow green to blue green, and you can just laying that brush down sideways. There's some more color in there. Just dabbing. It's a bit of an impressionistic look, isn't it? And that's all you're going to do for now, is let that dry out. And then we'll do our next step. Okay, so now we're going back and we're going to do the middle ground. That's this section through here. And if you look on the finished piece, that has value tones that get from light to dark on it. So we're just going to kind of take a wet paintbrush with just some water in it. And I'm going to grab kind of a mid aquamarine, ultramarine blue I'm going to make. And I'm just going to do one side of each of those backs of those mountains first to give you the shadow side of the hills. Just like so. So one thing you're going to notice is we don't use any white. We save the white of the paper. But we're going to do a wash over that maybe and just get those down a little bit. So now I'm going to do those middle mountains a little darker. Okay, maybe I go back in with that and I run up that back edge. Give us a little more contrast. See, I'm just taking and doing it along the edge of the mountain. Then we have our mesa out in front of those. And we want it to show up even more than those other two ranges. So add more water to your paint. I'm going to do a little green in this one. And I'm going to make my mesas here. There's two little mesas that come. Here's one. And then the other one comes up over here. So, maybe got a little range in here, just a little valley to fill in. Then finally I'm going to take and dip that brush in water and rinse those colors out, and I'm going to wash these back mountains real quick. Let that set for a second. Now I know you think toilet paper is precious right now, but you can take some of your precious and just dab that back just a little bit. Alright, for this next part, we're going to jump back on the front. And there's a couple things you're going to want to do. And one of them is you can put, there's a little fence out in front, a little barbed wire fence. So we can take a brown. And there's only actually one fence post showing in this little picture. And it's just right here. So I'm just going to do a little brown up like that. Lightly, and then another darker brown with it, and that'll give us something way up in the foreground and make you feel like you're standing in the picture. So didn't take much, just a couple swipes and that guy's done. Then next you're going to take a sponge, a little sea sponge like that you can get. You can crumple up some paper, you can use any kind of sponge, and you want to dip that in water. And you put that in your little water and get it nice and wet, but squeeze it back out. So then, after you've got that sponge wet, you can take either with a paintbrush and fill your paintbrush with paint and paint it on your sponge, or you can dip your paint right into your sponge right into your palette and pick up those greens is what I'm going to do. We're going to use green in our sponge. Okay? If you're really brave, you can go right into the color over there. So all you're going to do is you're going to hold down your postcard so it stays still, and you're going to sponge over the green areas. You're just going to dab it. Switch hands and sides here. So that just gives some foliage to your mountain, to your trees in the foreground. Okay, so let's let that dry a while and then we'll go on to the last steps. Alright, for this last bit of painting, we're just going to take and get our brush wet and kind of create, just using red, green, and blue, and mix them together. And I get kind of just a dark color out of that. And so I'm going to take that and just redo some of the edges on the shadows on the mountains and some shadows on a few things. So here I go. That's that. We're going to let that dry and we'll do our pen and ink. Alright, well that's dry, so we're going to do our pen and ink part now. And I just use this fine point Sharpie. And that's pretty much all it takes. Flip her over, put a stamp on it. Make it out to however you think ought to get it. and say hi. Hope you enjoy.